Hello there and welcome to a brief promotion of a new children's book which I have written. Now whether or not this particular video is child appropriate, it doesn't matter, as this story, The Four Friends' Birthday, is scheduled for release on the 23rd of May 2025, which by the time this video is out, or by the time you're watching it, is probably already out, but hey ho. But be sure to get yourself a copy if you're a fan of slice of life content or even media from the 90s or early 2000s. This story is aimed for young audiences, so do keep that in mind. You can pre-order now on Amazon, link provided down below in the description, or you can wait for the story to be in stores or online on other marketplaces. You can even choose between a paperback or Kindle edition. Regardless, I shan't waste any more of your time. This is a brief promotion, so be sure to buy yourself a copy today. Now, onto the video. Hello there and welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, or what you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at The Unicorn and the Wasp. I hope you enjoy. This episode was written by Gareth Roberts, who previously wrote the pseudo-historical episode, The Shakespeare's Code. Roberts was given a fourth series episode to write after executive producer Russell T Davies reviewed Roberts' script for The Shakespeare's Code. Several months later, he received an email from the production team which simply said Agatha Christie. The idea for a murder mystery featuring Agatha Christie originally came from producer Phil Collinson. A framing device featuring the aged Agatha Christie, who was initially played by Daphne Oxenford, tried recalling the events that took place during her disappearance, and this was deleted because the producers felt it diminished from the story's urgency. The original ending featured the Doctor and Donna visiting the elderly Christie. A new ending obviously was set with the TARDIS filmed after the producers decided to cut the framing sequence, much later than the filming for the rest of the story, of course. Although cut, this was Oxenford's last role as an actress before she died in 2012. Jordan Thomas, the lead director of the game Bioshock 2, stated that his creation of the game's character of Sophia Lamb was inspired by Felina Woodgar's portrayal of Agatha Christie. In this episode, of course, Woodgar was also hired to voice the character. The game also had a character called Grace Holloway in it, which is a reference to the companion of the same name from the 1996 Doctor Who film. In terms of principal photography, this is the second story shot in the fourth series. This episode does make a few deviations from the actual events concerning Agatha Christie's disappearance. It depicts her car as being found beside a lake and then her arriving at the hotel in Harrogate, which the sign depicts as called the Harrogate Hotel, 10 days later. In reality, her car was found parked beside a quarry, and it was 11 days later she was spotted in the Hydropathic Hotel, which is now called the Old Swan, having been recognised by a musician who saw her dancing in a ballroom. Also, her disappearance occurred in the winter, but Gareth Roberts wanted the story to be in the summer because Planet of the Ood was already in a wintry setting. David Tennant's father, Sandy MacDonald, makes a cameo as a footman. The Doctor Who Confidential, Nemesis, showed that he was visiting David on set and was offered a part on the spot, and he confessed he was glad he didn't have to learn his lines. The role of Robina Redmond was originally offered to Georgia Moffat, who eventually ended up playing the titular character in The Doctor's Daughter, and of course marrying David Tennant. The Doctor's description of his cyanide poisoning as involving inhibited enzymes approximates the actual mechanism of cyanide toxicity. Cyanide inhibits the enzyme AA3 by binding the iron that it contains, reducing the ability to create cells use oxygen to create the compound ATP used for cellular energy transfer. Since 95% of the ATP production in the human body, and presumably also Time Lords, is aerobic, mortality via energy starvation quickly follows. The Doctor's method of uninhibiting the enzymes, however, is not based on a real remedy, for humans in any case. In The Writer's Tale, Davies also revealed that during his rewriting of the script, he entertained himself by inserting as many references to Christie's novels as possible. He originally inserted a reference to a particular novel, which is called 10 Little It's same as Sniggers, let's just say that. Also known as the 10 Little Indians, and then there were none, before deciding it was way too risky to keep in. In fact, in the script it said, Donna, it's like 10 little... The Doctor, niggles aside, we'd better look in the library. That really was something they were going to add into the script, by the way. Doctor Who Confidential Nemesis shows that at least one of the classic cars that was used during filming was a Morris Cowley, which Christie was actually driving in 1926. Within this episode, Donna joined the list of companions to kiss the Doctor or be kissed by him on the lips. The anchovies that the Doctor pours down his throat in the kitchen were really mushrooms. The role of Lady Edison was offered to Helen Mirren, believe it or not. Agatha Christie's grandson Matthew Pritchard was involved in the production, representing Christie's estate, attended the episode's read-through and gave his enthusiastic approval to her portrayal. The only set built for this episode was the locked room. As I've mentioned before in a previous episode, Russell T Davies' original concept for the Shadow Proclamation scene in Stolen Earth included an appearance by several aliens, one of which was several buzzing Vestiform. But his plans to feature a rogues gallery of alien races in the scene fell through. Ultimately, only the Jadoon were the returning race featured. The Vespiforms were not the first species of giant alien wasps introduced, as in Doctor Who magazine, the second Doctor story, The Killer Wasps, had previously introduced the somewhat different-looking giant wasps. Monster file Vespiform noted the existence rumours of the Vespiform history that matched that which was depicted in The Killer Wasps. Although this was merely an in-joke and should not be taken too seriously, a said comic story actually depicted normal wasps grown to enormous size by the Quarks, rather than naturally giant wasps. If an in-universe explanation for the must be sought, it could be simply that the rumour was a mistake. In The Last of the Time Lords, the Doctor told Martha Jones that he'd like to meet Agatha Christie, saying, I bet she'd be brilliant. And of course, in this story, he finally does. Originally, the Doctor was to have rammed the Vespiform in the lake with the car, and he and Donna had commandeered. David Tennant objected because he was concerned that the ending would portray the Doctor as a murderer. And that's it for today. The Unicorn and the Wasp as a Doctor Who story is meant to be an Agatha Christie sort of esque story, so to speak. You know, it's meant to be a crime mystery adventure, except with a giant wasp. And it does what it needs to do for the most part. You know, it is one of those generic, whodunit sort of stories. And, it does have a lot of fun with it. Of course, we do know that there is a giant wasp, but who is the giant wasp, I guess, is the main question. And I do quite like that aspect of it. But, of course, like with many, crime mystery sort of detective stories, is that once you've seen it, you kind of already know what's going to happen. It becomes a bit too predictable. And it's one of those things where you can only really watch it once. You can't really watch it a second time without just immediately knowing who's done it, who is the culprit, why they did it, what the motivation is. And I think that's one of the dangers of a story like this, is it's a one and done sort of story. Not to say that this is a bad story in any sense. In any sense, really, it's still a very, very good story. A lot of people love this story. A lot of family members in particular love this story, and I do too. I like it. It's just not the most perfect thing in the world. It is a story which unfortunately suffers from being once you've seen it, you don't really need to watch it again. And it is one of those serviceable stories where, again, it's there to exist. It doesn't really, have any major revelations, any major, story beats that are going to continue into the next story or throughout the whole series. It is just a story, and that's it. A story that works for its own, isolated situation, I guess you could argue. I don't hate it. I think it's a good story. I think it's still a fun Doctor Who episode. I think that's what a lot of people find with this particular story, is that it is fun. It's fun. And there's not really anything else to say about it. It is just a fun, mystery story. Whodunit. Sure, Doctor Who has done it many times in the past, and this is sort of no different, but I guess because it is actually trying to be like parodic in that sense, it's got Agatha Christie in it, of course. But yeah, like, as a whole, this is one of those stories which, it's serviceable, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you kind of don't need to watch it again once you've seen it. And I think that's really the biggest danger of stories like this, is that once you know it, it's not really going to have that same impact, which is rather ironic, because Doctor Who is full of these sort of stories where there is this twist at the end, where there is this cliffhanger, and, you do get, excited for the next part. And you can rewatch these stories over and over again and still have that sense of urgency and excitement. So I guess with this one in particular, it's a bit of it's an okay story. I think that is all I can really say. It's an okay story. It's not got perfect. It is a fan favourite to a lot of people. A lot of people love it, and I can see why. It's a charming story. That's all I can actually say. But I hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I will see you next time.